Imagine this. You've just landed the job of your dreams, overseas. Everything's packed, you've said your goodbyes, and this whole new life is right there, waiting for you. But then, one tiny mistake threatens to burn it all to the ground. What do? What happens when absolutely everything is on the line? Well, let's get into it.
Now, this isn't just some hypothetical story. This actually happened to an acquaintance of mine. He had landed this fantastic opportunity abroad and was, literally on the edge of this massive life change. And it wasn't just a new job. It was a complete and total fresh start that, honestly, he really needed.
And then, disaster. A simple booking error. Turns out his flight wasn't for next week. It was leaving that same night. He had less than an hour to get to the airport. It was this impossible race against the clock. And, you guessed it, he missed the flight. Just like that, his ticket, and maybe his entire future, just vanished.
Now you're probably thinking, okay, that's rough, but just buy another ticket, right? He even said that himself. If he'd had the money, he would have bought one on the spot, but he didn't. And here's the crazy part. Even though he knew a lot of pretty well-off people, not a single person would help him. So the big question is, why?
So let's talk about this missed opportunity. His situation was just desperate. Weeks started to drag on. He heard nothing from the company about a new ticket. With every single day that passed, you could just feel that dream slipping further and further away.
So the immediate problem was financial, right? He needed the money for a new international flight, and he needed it now. It was one of those classic crisis moments where you just have to call on your network, on your friends for support. But when he reached out, all he got was silence, crickets.
And this, right here, is where we get to the real problem. It goes so much deeper than just not having enough cash. See, the issue wasn't his economic capital. It was the fact that he was completely bankrupt in what we call human capital.
We usually think of capital as, money, assets, the stuff in your bank account. That's economic capital. But there's this whole other form of capital, one that's arguably way more important when you're in a tough spot. Human capital isn't about what's in your wallet. It's all about the trust, the reputation, and the relationships you built up over your lifetime.
To put it really simply, your human capital is just the sum of all your relationships. It's the network of people you can call when things go sideways. And it kind of forces all of us to ask ourselves, are we building real, meaningful connections, or are we just creating distance?
Well, for my acquaintance, the answer was pretty clear. He had systematically, over years, destroyed his own network, leaving him with what you could only call a bankrupt personal brand.
You see, over the years, his reputation had become totally toxic. When people thought of him, it wasn't as a friend who needed a hand, it was as someone who was just dishonest, known for scamming people, borrowing money and never paying it back, and just constant lying. He had burned every single bridge.
A friend of his once put it so bluntly. He said, "A thief and a liar are a combo." And when he was confronted with this pattern of his, did he reflect? Nope. He just denied everything, claiming everyone was out to get him.
You can literally trace this whole downward spiral. He started out with a good, respectable job, had great connections, but then came the turning point, where he chose to misuse his position to cheat people. The fallout from that? It was inevitable. He lost his job, he lost his friends, he lost his entire support system. And that left him totally isolated right when he needed help the most.
Ultimately, it all boils down to your personal brand. And that's not some fancy marketing term. It's just your reputation. It's what people say about you after you've left the room. And if that story is a negative one, well, your human capital account is running on empty.
So after hearing that cautionary tale, how do we do the opposite? How can we actively build positive human capital so that we're never, ever in that kind of position?
Building a strong network really comes down to three things. First, you've got to actually know what your own core values are. What do you stand for? That's your compass. Second, you have to nurture your relationships with care and with integrity. That means your actions have to line up with your values consistently. And third, and this is a big one, remember that trust isn't built in some grand gesture. It's built in all the small, everyday things, like just keeping your word on the little promises.
Look, this is not some transactional game. Real human capital isn't built by asking, hey, what can this person do for me? It's built by genuinely connecting with people who share your core values. Things like honesty, integrity, and just mutual respect.
Because in the end, we're all responsible for the lives we build for ourselves. And believe me, there will be moments of reckoning for all of us.
There's a simple truth here that we all know. Life invariably comes full circle.
You might think you can get away with little dishonesties here and there, but those actions always have consequences. Life just has this funny way of bringing our past behavior back around, usually when we're at our most vulnerable.
So how many of his so-called affluent connections were willing to help him out? The number is 0. A big, fat 0. After a lifetime of burning bridges, he was left with absolutely nothing, and no one to draw on when he needed it most.
And this, right here, is why it all matters. When times are good, it's easy to feel like we can do it all ourselves. But it's in those challenging moments, a missed flight, an illness, a personal crisis, that the true strength of our support network is really tested.
So I'll just leave you with this one final thought. Every day, with your actions and your words, you are building your reputation. You're building your human capital. When that inevitable challenge comes looking for you and you have to make that call for help, what story is your network going to tell?